Okay, so today's webinar focuses on Made of Money. This is Quaker Social Action's financial well-being project. It encourages long-term behavioural change around money. And today we're joined by its manager, Simon Phillips. And I'm pleased that he's here with us to tell us a bit more about Made of Money, and also to tell us how it's adapted during this challenging time of the pandemic and the lockdown that we've experienced. So my name is Rachel Quincy and I work in the fundraising and communications team. And I just want to tell you a little bit about Quaker Social Action if you don't already know about us. So we've been taking action against poverty for over 150 years. And we work with people on low incomes in East London and around the UK to make a practical difference in their lives. We do this by creating services wherever they're most needed, and we work with people in an empowering and holistic way. So you'll definitely hear more about that approach from Simon this morning. We were founded by Quakers, but we're an independent charity and we are inspired by Quaker values. For example, equality in our work against poverty and injustice. So we do our work in a few different ways. We provide crisis support for those unable to afford funerals or furniture. We also run a supported housing project for young adult carers. And we empower people to manage money, improve their resilience, and even cook healthily on a budget. So back to me, and I will now hand over to Simon, who will be giving us the update this morning. Thank you, Simon.
Cool. Thank you very much, Rachel. Lovely to see you all. Thank you very much for coming along. As Rachel said, I'm Simon Phillips. I'm the manager of Made of Money, QSA's financial wellbeing project. We've been around, Made of Money has been around for 15 years now, which is an awful long time to be talking about money. So why do we bother? Well, I think money is, there's three elements to that really. Money's really important. It pays, it's in every aspect of our lives. It's about our jobs, it's about where we live, the relationships we have, the food we eat, the clothes we wear. And yet we struggle to talk about it. It's not something we feel comfortable talking about it. And I think the combination of both those things, its importance in our lives and the fact that we find it difficult, creates a lot of anxiety and stress for people. And the point of Made of Money is to help people recognise and understand that importance and the role it plays in our lives, get people to talk about it, and hopefully reduce that anxiety and stress. So over the next 15-20 minutes, I've split this into two blocks. So first of all, I'm going to talk about what Made of Money does and how we do it. And I think that's important because I think our approach is what makes us distinctive. And then the second half, I'm going to look at the impact of COVID-19, our response to that, and how we're learning from that and hopefully taking it forward into the future to develop and evolve our service. So first of all, it's a quick overview of what Made of Money does. We deliver financial wellbeing courses to our local community in East London, courses that last between 2 to 6 weeks. Alongside that, we offer one-to-one financial coaching for the people who attend those courses. And I'm really pleased actually in the next month or so, we're just shy of 3,000 people that we've worked with in this time. I think we're about 10 or 11 off it. So there's going to be a bit of a celebration coming up probably sometime in July. We also do one-off workshops in the community centres and the places where we work. These might be like on energy, how to change energy providers and things like that. And we also train staff from other organisations. And again, I'm quite pleased that we've recently hit that milestone of 600 organisations trained, and it's actually 601 because we started doing an online training last week, so we've just gone over that figure. And finally, we do service design, which is where we work with housing associations or other organisations, and look at how we can help them deliver a financial wellbeing service to their clients. So, who do we work with? Well, I thought why I'd start, instead of just talking about who we're working with straight off, I'm going to get you to do a little exercise, a little activity. So this is how we begin all of our courses, and we ask people to think about an early memory of money. Now that might be something quite specific, a specific story. It might be about how they got money when they were younger, where they get it from, what they did with it, how did they learn about it, did anybody teach them, and what were the people around them like? What were they around them like with money? Now the reason we do this, and we start by looking at those things, is because our early experiences of money are absolutely vital to the attitudes and habits and behaviours that we develop as we get older and into our adult life. For example, people often talk about having to work for money when they were young, and they've grown up with quite a strong work ethic because they connect work and getting money together. Other people talk about conflict in their houses. And how money is something that they avoid now. They avoid conversations because then it brings back those memories of conflict. Other people manage their money very, very carefully, so they don't have that conflict. Some people, there's no money at all in their house when they're growing up, and therefore some people have developed this idea of guilt around spending, so they don't spend money because, you know, their parents didn't have the money, so they feel bad about spending it. Other people take the opposite view and think, well, if I didn't have this, I want my children to have what I didn't have, and they lavish gifts on their children. The important thing about that is it's a key experience in our lives, and we all respond to it in a very, very different way. So maybe, you know, later on today, if you get a chance, you know, sit down, have a cup of tea, take 10 minutes, think about your early memories of money. What was it like when you were growing up, and how has it affected you in how you regard and your relationship with money now? So we start there, and that's one of the reasons it explains who we work with. And we do a lot of work with parents, and it is for that particular reason, because those early experiences are so important. And we were involved last year for about 18 months. We were working with Money and Pension Services in a project called What Works. And the report from that was about how best to help children and young people develop strong financial skills. And there were two sides to it. One is obviously there's a very important role that the schools can play there, but the schools is mainly about instruction, and children learn from observation and instruction, and therefore the parents are in a very unique role there, because they can actually model the behaviour that they want their children to adopt, as well as instruct them. So our role there is working with the parents, and we're able then to build their confidence and help them to be able to communicate to their children and develop those skills. Other groups that we work with are with people who have had difficult times in their lives and very difficult experiences. These might be mental health problems, they might be in recovery from addiction, alcohol, drugs, gambling, or people who've had an experience of homelessness. Quite often a combination of those things. They're not exclusive in any way. And working with that group of people, these experiences, we've discovered, they have quite a detrimental effect on people's ability to manage their money. And then often lose a lot of the skills that they might have developed in those early years, as well as having developed quite difficult and entrenched behaviours and habits around money. The way we work with those groups is we work closely with the organised partner organisations, but also with the people who've had that lived experience, to co-design courses that are very much focusing on the particular problems that those groups of people might have. So let's have a look at what we do and how we do this. Okay, so I'm going to put up another slide for you. So our approach and how we look at this. Well, as I said before, Our key thing is that everybody has an individual relationship with money. We all have our own experiences, circumstances in which we live. And through that, we've developed our own habits, motivations, attitudes and behaviors around money. And we have certain values that we like to stick to. What we do is we get people together in groups, and have a number of discussion-based activities and almost games in some cases, where we get people to talk and share and learn from each other. And the key thing, I think, is that understanding that because it's all quite individual and we all have our own way of dealing with things, we've all got to adulthood and we've developed certain ways of doing things that work for us. And it's not about changing those things. It's about recognizing what works for you and thinking, yeah, I'm going to carry on doing that. And then to think critically and think, what doesn't work for me and when doesn't it work for me? And what changes can I make there? And how can I improve what I'm doing? And the final part of what we do, I think it's about building confidence. And a lot of that is about, Rachel spoke at the beginning about the Quaker value of simplicity. And I think that's something that's integral to what we do Made of Money. We try and simplify the processes, the financial services and products. We try and help people build their confidence that way. So for example, something like saving, it can seem like quite a difficult thing if you set yourself a target, I'm going to save £150. But if you save 50 pence a day in 10 months, you've got £150. So concentrate on that 50 pence. The small changes are what counts. Budgeting as well. I mean, I've tried myself doing things, the budgeting tools that you can get, and they're very detailed and they can seem very daunting. And I've certainly tried them myself and I've given up halfway through because it was just too much. But actually just focus on one thing. So let's just work on food or just on clothes and look at what you're spending there and work out a budget around that one thing. And then when you've got the confidence to do that and you've made some savings, move on to something else. And I think that's sort of outlines our approach. So it's very individual. It's about bringing people together to talk and share. It's about understanding and thinking critically about what's working for you and then building confidence in people's abilities and skills. So this was all going along very nicely and we were really enjoying ourselves and things were great. And then along came COVID-19. I was speaking to Rachel yesterday, and this is my Emily Maitlis moment here, sorry. Because I don't know if any of you saw her wonderful introduction to the Newsnight the other week. The impact of what's happened here. It's not just a health crisis. It is a socio-economic crisis, and it has had a huge impact on people's finances, and particular those on low incomes. It is not affecting everybody equally at all. There are lots of stats and things banding around. Some of the things that I found recently, there are 8 million households now in financial difficulty and over 3 million households in serious financial difficulty. But what do those terms mean? Financial difficulty, serious financial difficulty. So we're talking about households where there's been a huge loss of income. People have lost jobs. Quite often the people have had jobs that, their jobs have been insecure. The kind of work they've been doing is things like hospitality or the service industry, and those are the ones that have been closed down. So people have lost their jobs, they've been furloughed, so they've lost quite a lot of income. They're not meeting their basic living needs. They can't get food on the table. They're unable to buy essentials like cleaning equipment or toiletries. They're missing out payments, quite often 2, 3, 4 payments. Things like rent, loans, bills, credit card. I know a lot of people have been taking these holiday, been offered these holiday on repayments. But that is just moving the problem further down the line. It's obviously going to come, at some point they're going to have to pay that money back. And so these problems are just building up. And I think the two statistics that stood out for me were that 50% of all households now feeling very anxious when they think about their finances. So that's all households across the whole country. And of the groups of the 8 million households in financial difficulty, that figure rises quite obviously to 95%. And that anxiety will have a detrimental effect on people's physical and mental health over time. So for us, we're a service that was delivering in the community, face-to-face venues, schools, libraries, community centres. So all of that ceased. So what have we done to deal with this? So the first thing we did was we spoke to the partner organisations that we work with in East London, and we contacted the people who've been on some of the groups that we'd had to suspend, and also some of the people that we'd worked with before that had attended our courses before, just to find out what the issues were, what was actually happening out there, and is there anything we could do to help. We were very lucky in that one of our funders, Good Things Foundation, funded through JP Morgan, is a project where it's a pilot project, if you like, where we're putting digital skills and financial skills together. And they allowed us to be quite broad about how we continued with this, and allowed us to focus more on the digital skills rather than the financial skills. So we spoke to a lot of people, and there's some of the issues that came up, certainly obviously the stuff I've just mentioned, but also some of these other things that were particular to the people we were working with. That a lot of people spoke about increased costs in their bills and food because they and their family were at home all the time. There was a lot of anxiety around finances, around debts, some people about their housing. People were feeling quite isolated, and not just older people or people living by themselves. Families were feeling isolated because they weren't in contact with other parts of the other members of their family, and they felt cut off from the services that were supporting them. A lot of people were worried about scams. There was a lack of information and guidance, or rather there was a plethora of information and guidance, but people didn't know where to go or who to speak to, or what to where they could get good information and guidance. And then I think the whole idea of shifting, a lot of services shifted things online. Now that created its own problem, and although it's been very good for some people, we picked up on two things that I think were absolutely key there. One that people had a huge fear about doing things online. They were often giving quite personal information, and they really weren't comfortable sharing that through technology or putting that onto a website. The other thing, and I think it's beginning to be highlighted now, is that there's a lack of equipment. People don't have the necessary equipment. People can't afford broadband in their houses, so they haven't got the infrastructure. And of course, even if they have got those things, they lack the skills to take full advantage of the technology that's out there. Now, I appreciate that last one. I think somebody sent a question in about that, and it is, we've worked with the people who are funding us, and we've found other charities who are giving out equipment and things like that. But I do think that that's something that needs to be looked at nationally, at government level. It's about policy. If we are going to move as a society more towards using online technology, we've got to make sure that no one gets left behind. So how do we take this forward? Well, first thing we did was we tried to deal with the the first thing we did, we tried to get some sensible advice and guidance out there. So we put together this page that you can see on the screen, I hope, which is, in a way, we went through everything that was out there and we curated the information in some way. So we tried to find who was giving the best information on a particular topic, where to go if you were looking for information about employment or furloughing, where to go if you wanted help with debt, places that could help you look at scams. So it's just making sure that the advice was reliable. We keep this updated, by the way, and every Thursday morning, one of our staff looks at this and makes sure that everything is updated, and we try and add things as we go along. The second thing we did was we traditionally, I suppose, we work a lot more with groups than we do one-to-one, but we realised actually one-to-one support was what people wanted and what people required, particularly those who had a fear of using technology. We've done that over the phone, helping people use WhatsApp on the video conferencing on WhatsApp and other platforms, and then things like Zoom as well, so we can talk to people and we can see them. It's been very good, as I said, about helping people address the fears. We had one woman, for example, who needed to do online shopping because she was in a vulnerable group and was self-isolating, but she'd been scammed. a year or so before and had lost a lot of money. And so was very, very scared of using online platforms or doing, shopping online. So it was a question of talking her very slowly but very carefully through the process, ensuring that and reassuring her that she was safe at each part of the process. And I'm glad to say she is now back able to deliver things online. And then very recently we've started up groups. One of the things that we found initially as well was that when we contacted people is one, they had a lack of time, so they weren't able to speak to us for too long. But also the idea of going on to something like Zoom, which they hadn't used before, with a bunch of people who they'd never met before, to talk about quite personal things in their lives, was not something they wanted to do. And so it was difficult to get groups going, and I fully understand that, because I'm not sure that I would want to do that either. But yeah, lately we've got in touch with people who knew each other already, got those groups going together, and we've also started a couple of other groups getting people together, just very small, just 3 or 4, but it is just building that community and helping people to get talking to each other again and addressing some of that anxiety and stress that I spoke about at the beginning. We've looked at 2 ways of doing it. One is focusing on a particular topic, maybe budgeting or saving or something like that, or the effects of COVID-19. And the other side of it is looking more of a sort of a drop-in effect, where we run our courses and just have a general chit-chat and a conversation. And I think what's been really good for us about this, and I think the final part of what I'm going to say this morning is about the future and what we've learned from this. I think it's one of those things that we've been wanting to move our services online and offer things online, just so we could meet a broader range of people. And we've been asking ourselves, can we do this? And as Bob the Builder said, yes, we can. So we've moved things online. We've started doing training. We started last week. We're going to do some more in June and July. So I'm really hoping that will be an offer that we can put out to everybody. We've been working a lot on adapting our activities. As I say, a lot of our courses and things are based around people being in a room together, being face to face. And so we've been looking at developing those activities, designing new ones that will work on platforms like this. Very much that we're learning as we go. There's different ways of doing things, and it's a different way of offering our service. So we're trying things out, and I'm really pleased with the results that we've had so far. And I think we are definitely learning a lot. And I think in the end, it comes back to what we're about. We have spoken about what Made of Money does and how we approach it. And I think we're sticking to our approach. We're still getting to people, talking to people about how they understand their money. And it comes back to those 3 things I said at the beginning. Money's a really important thing in our lives. It's in every aspect of our lives. It's about talking. We need to talk about this. We need to learn and listen to each other and share, and we need to understand this relationship that we have with money. And I think that's the best way we can go forward. People can develop the skills, long-term behavioural change, and reduce some of that anxiety and stress. So that's me finished. So I'll hand back to Rachel now, and any questions that any of you might have.
Thank you so much, Simon. That was great. Thank you. So yes, thank you again for joining us this morning. And so if you're able to, please do support our appeal. The web address is on the screen. If you're able to, that would be wonderful.